so excited to get to talk to Jim Yang today about his reading system. We are big proponents here on, reading at Short Story Time, and so is Jim. Actually, Jim is such a big proponent for reading that he created his own reading system. He was frustrated when trying to teach his daughter to read, so he created his own system that worked wonders for her, and now it's working wonders for a lot of other parents and their kids in just 12 weeks. I think it's so cool that Jim saw a need, followed his heart and his convictions, and jumped right in to create a product to fill that need. He and his wife Elena have been working the last 2 years on this. Researching, testing, developing, and perfecting this reading system. It's really cool. If you go to their website, ChildrenLearningReading.com, you get to see all the testimonials, and you actually get to see the system working on his 2-year-old daughter. So we're going to get to talk to him about how he came up with the system and why it works and everything that's included in it, because I know you're going to want to know more about it. Welcome, Jim. We're so glad to have you this morning.
Okay, thanks for having me.
As you know, we're all about reading on Short Story Time and the importance of reading. So when I looked at your website, I was so intrigued by this system you have created. And I thought, there's a lot of books already and videos and courses out there that claim to teach your child to read at a young age. Can you briefly explain to us what made you decide to start from scratch, first of all, and create your own reading system, and then how it's different from the other systems that are out there and that you were frustrated with?
Sure. The thing is, when we started the whole thing, our original goal was actually not to create a system of our own, to make it a marketable product that we could sell to other parents. But actually, our only goal at that time was how can we teach our own child to read at that time, and that was our only goal. And with that in mind, so what we did a lot of research into a lot of stuff, and we actually spent quite a bit of money on some of the programs, and some of them actually cost quite a bit, like $200-300, and a lot of it doesn't even work. And so the thing is, when I started, I did a lot of research into this whole thing, and I spent a lot of time browsing the online databases with the scientific reports and the scientific journals. And when I did a lot of research into that, I found a lot of great information, but I didn't get anything concrete after quite some time. But it's not until I found this report done by the National Reading Panel, with the one they did in 2000, where they made the statement stating that it's phonemic awareness. That's what makes it extremely effective at teaching young children to read, and that programs that does not involve phonemic awareness is not nearly as effective as programs that do involve. So for me, this was kind of like an aha moment kind of thing, where I finally found something that was concrete, that was going to set my direction for future research, and this is what we built our program around.
Why is it so important to you that they learn to read, like before they went to school?
Okay, I'm a very heavy reader myself. I probably spend like a good few hours a day, like doing very heavy reading. The first thing I get up in the morning, I spend a few hours reading, browsing through all the news, and I read my books, I read blogs. So a lot of times my wife would look at me and say, "What are you reading all day?" And I tell her, "I don't know, I just read." So for me, it's just something that I enjoy doing, and I learn a lot from it. And the benefits of reading is there's enormous benefits of reading. For example, when you read, you have rich vocabulary growth. It expands your world knowledge, where you learn a lot about the stuff that you otherwise wouldn't know. And also, it stimulates your intellectual development and helps you makes you smarter. And I actually found a lot of research to support all of this. And so this is something why I feel it's very important to teach my kids to read at a young age. Because when kids are young, their brains are developing, and they're like a little sponge. They just soak everything right up. And my feeling is that reading is absolutely essential if you want to succeed in anything you want to do. Because if you go to school, any of the subjects you look at, math, English, social studies, science, history, you all have to read about it. It all involves reading, and if you're not a good reader, you can have difficult time keeping up with the classes.
Right.
And right. So there's a few good studies that I found that were very interesting involving students. Where this is one done by Cunningham and Stanovich, where they found that the grade 1 vocabulary and reading scale of grade 1 students directly predicted how they performed in grade 11. So this is a 10-year difference, how they did in grade 1. It directly predicted how they performed in grade 11.
Wow,
so,
that's fantastic.
So that's very interesting. And there's another very interesting study done by Donald J. Hernandez, where he looked at the reading scales of grade 3 students and to see how that correlated with graduation rates. And it was quite surprising. What he found was that children who couldn't read proficiently at grade 3, they were 4 times less likely to graduate with a diploma. Wow. So it's a huge difference. And the last thing I just want to mention here is that in another scientific report made by Cunningham and Stanovich, they explicitly stated that reading makes you smarter, and the very act of reading can help children compensate for modest levels of cognitive ability. And I think the benefits of it all, it's already showing up, even though my daughter's only just almost 5 right now, and she's already reading at a grade 3, grade 4 level right now. So
right. Well, if the study you just talked about the child who was, at grade 1, that 10-year span, if they're reading well at grade 1, determined what was going to happen 10 years down the road. If you wait until they go to kindergarten or first grade to learn how to read, then they're already behind the scale of things. So, I know. Yeah. So on your website, you talk about this thing called the Matthew effect, and I think that kind of goes along with what we're discussing. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, sure. The Matthew effect in society is actually used to describe a phenomenon where the rich actually become richer and the poor becomes poor, which is quite true. But when you use it in the reading sense of the Matthew effect, it's more about where the good readers, they become even better at reading, and the poor readers become worse. So what you have is, with good readers, you have an upward spiral where they have a good foundation in reading. They spend a lot of time reading. They like what they read. They learn a lot, so they get this positive feedback at the same time that they are reading. So they tend to read more, and then when they read more, they become even better at reading simply because they get more practice at it. And so what you have is this positive upward spiral.
Right.
And conversely, with poor readers, they don't have the foundational reading skills. They have difficulties reading. They don't enjoy reading because it's difficult for them. Even if they can read it, sometimes they might not understand what they're reading simply because they don't have the word recognition skills to be able to understand it properly.
Right.
And at the same time, when they have this poor experience of reading, they tend to read a lot less. And so it's a kind of a negative feedback loop that they go through compared to the good readers. And there's this other very interesting study done in 1988 by Anderson, Wilson, and Fielding, where they look at the reading time grade 5 students spend outside of the school. So this is the time that they spend reading when they're not in school for grade 5 students. And what they found is very interesting. And for a child in the top 90th percentile, the average daily time they spend reading was around a little over 21 minutes. So in an average year, they read about 1.8 million words, a little over that. But if you compare that to a child in the bottom 10th percentile, they spend about on average 0.1 minutes reading per day. And they read about 8,000 words a year. So that's a difference of like 200 some fold difference between the top 90th percentile and the bottom 10th percentile.
Right.
So I think that's a huge difference.
Right, it is.